Hi, everyone. I am David Lipton, creator of the podcast series The Reckoning, July 4th, 2030. I am introducing an experimental series of AI generated conversations, complements of Notebook LM. These conversations are based entirely on my podcasts. They are called the Deep Dive series. Just imagine two of your friends discussing my podcasts and enjoy the conversations.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're diving into your fascination with immigration to America. And guess what? We have something extra cool to explore.
It's an episode of the podcast The Reckoning,
Yeah.
July 4, 2030. Yeah, you heard that right, 2030.
It's like getting a sneak peek into a history lesson from the future.
I know, it's fascinating. The host, David Lipton, starts by painting a picture we all know well, the Statue of Liberty, a symbol of America as a land of opportunity.
Remember those powerful words about welcoming the tired, the poor, the huddled masses?
Right, that iconic image. But Lipton doesn't stop there. He contrasts it with the present-day reality of immigration at the U.S.-Mexico border, highlighting how the paths and challenges faced by immigrants have drastically changed over time.
And here's the kicker. He points out that we don't see those same masses of people trying to get into China or Russia.
That's what makes it so interesting. It suggests that maybe, just maybe, those countries aren't viewed as offering the same promise of freedom and prosperity that America represents.
So true. It begs the question, what is it about America that still pulls people in from all over the world?
Lipton argues it boils down to two main things: what pushes people out of their home countries and what pulls them towards the U.S.
He uses a very strong term to describe the situations many migrants are fleeing, calling them bandit lands.
Yes, bandit lands. It definitely paints a grim picture, doesn't it?
Lipton doesn't sugarcoat the harsh realities these individuals are escaping from. But what's remarkable is their determination to reach the U.S.
He emphasizes that they're not just coming for themselves, but for future generations, hoping to build better lives for their children and grandchildren.
That's some serious ambition and hope. It makes you wonder, though, how this American dream of integration actually plays out.
Lipton dives into a pretty unexpected comparison. He claims that, despite its challenges, the U.S. actually does a better job of assimilating immigrants than Europe.
And he doesn't stop there.
He suggests this difference might even contribute to some of the social unrest and nationalist tensions we see in Europe today.
Okay, now that is a bold statement. I'm hooked. He's saying that maybe America, in its own way, is doing something right when it comes to welcoming newcomers. But is it really that simple?
Well, that's what we need to unpack. Is Lipton's view of European integration accurate? Or is it a bit too simplistic?
We'll need to dive into his data and analysis to find out.
All right, you've got me on the edge of my seat. Let's see what evidence Lipton has to back up this claim about American assimilation.
So to illustrate this idea of American assimilation, Lipton brings in some hard data.
He uses a few visuals in his podcast, and even though you can't see them, we'll take the picture for you.
Okay.
His first visual is a graph that tracks the share of immigrants in the U.S. population all the way back to 1850.
Okay.
And guess what? Every time that share climbs above a certain point, think around 12% to 15% anti-immigrant sentiment tends to flare up.
Fascinating. So it's like a pattern throughout history.
Exactly. We saw it before World War I, and Lipton argues we've been seeing it again since the 1990s. This historical context really adds weight to his argument about national identity and the anxieties that come with a changing population.
Okay, so we've got this cyclical pattern of immigration and reaction.
Mm-hmm.
What else does Lipton's data reveal?
He then shifts gears and shows us a map highlighting where most immigrants from 2018 to 2022 settled in the U.S.
Okay.
Any guesses?
Let me think. I'm going to guess the usual suspects: New York, California, maybe Texas and Florida too.
Spot on. Big cities continue to be magnets for newcomers. But Lipton saves the most surprising data point for last.
Okay.
He shows a set of pie charts comparing the occupations of immigrant workers versus U.S.-born workers in 2022.
Okay.
Now, you'd think there'd be a stark difference, right?
Yeah.
But that's not what the data shows.
Okay, now you've really piqued my curiosity. What does Lipton uncover? Don't leave me hanging.
Lipton reveals that the occupations are remarkably similar. Both groups are heavily represented in fields like management, business, science, the arts, and even service industries. It really challenges that stereotype of immigrants taking jobs away from native-born Americans, doesn't it?
Wow, that's pretty amazing. It sounds like immigrants are integrated into all facets of the American workforce.
Exactly. And if that wasn't enough to make you reconsider your assumptions, Lipton throws in a statistic that's sure to raise some eyebrows. Are you ready for this?
Hit me with it. I live for these aha moments.
He reveals that the median household income for immigrant workers in 2022 was actually slightly higher than for U.S.-born workers. Immigrants were bringing in around $75,500 compared to $74,600 for U.S.-born workers.
Wow. That's pretty incredible. It seems counterintuitive, but I guess the data speaks for itself.
Yeah, it does. But to Lipton's credit, he acknowledges that statistics don't always tell the whole story. He reminds us about the subterranean economy, those informal, often undocumented jobs that are much harder to track. So while this data is eye-opening, it's essential to be aware of its limitations.
That's a really important point. Lipton seems to be encouraging critical thinking about these complex issues, even when the data seems to paint a clear picture. It's not about blindly accepting statistics. It's about digging deeper.
Precisely. And this leads us to what I think is the crux of Lipton's argument. He poses a question that gets to the very heart of the immigration debate. How many immigrants can the U.S. absorb while still maintaining its national identity?
Ooh, now that's a loaded question. It's something people have been grappling with for generations. It makes me think of that famous quote by Benjamin Franklin, "A republic, madam, if you can keep it." Chills. That quote always gets me thinking.
Yeah.
It speaks to the fragility of democracy, doesn't it? Like it's this precious thing that needs constant care and attention.
Right. And Lipton connects that directly to the anxiety surrounding immigration.
Yeah.
He suggests that fear of losing this shared identity, this idea of what it means to be American, is driving a lot of the political gridlock we see today.
It makes you wonder, is that fear justified?
Yeah.
Can America absorb waves of immigrants and still hold on to its core values?
Lipton seems pretty frustrated with what he sees as decades of congressional inaction on immigration reform. He does. He calls out both Democrats and Republicans for avoiding the issue, suggesting they're more concerned with political maneuvering than finding real solutions. Lipton even implies that they're afraid of the potential backlash from voters if they take a strong stance either way.
That's a tough position to be in. It highlights just how deeply entwined immigration is with politics, economics, even national identity. It's no wonder it sparks such heated debates. So how does Lipton leave his listeners? Does he offer any hope?
He ends the episode with a question, a really thought-provoking one. He asks his listeners if they believe enough Americans still hold the values needed to uphold the Constitution. It's almost like a challenge, urging them to reflect on what it truly means to be American in the face of these complex issues.
Wow. Lipton really doesn't let you off the hook, does he? He leaves you pondering that question long after the episode ends. It's almost like he's saying, okay, you've listened to all this, now what are you going to do about it?
Exactly. He's pushing his listeners to engage with these questions on a deeper level, to think critically about the issues at play.
Okay.
And remember, his next episode is all about the importance of understanding history. It's almost like he's suggesting that by understanding our past, we might find some answers for the present and the future.
That's a great point. It's all connected, isn't it? Our past, our present, and the choices we make about immigration will undoubtedly shape the future of America.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up this deep dive into Lipton's perspective, there's one key takeaway that really stands out to me. It's this idea that immigration is woven into the very fabric of the American story. It's not a new phenomenon. It's a continuous thread connecting us to generations past and generations to come.
So true. And while Lipton offers a compelling perspective, it's essential to remember that it's just one viewpoint among many. What other voices, what other stories, what other historical moments are out there waiting to be explored? Because understanding the full scope of immigration, with all its complexities and nuances, requires looking at it from multiple angles.
Couldn't agree more. Lipton's podcast is a great starting point, but it's up to each of us to keep asking questions, keep seeking knowledge, and keep engaging in these critical conversations that shape who we are as a nation.
Beautifully said. And on that note, we'll leave you with this final thought. As you continue your own exploration of immigration, remember to keep an open mind, listen to diverse perspectives, and never stop questioning. Until next time, keep diving deep.